Hello, this is Robert from Retro Car Guy 530, and this is my review of the Viofo A119 Mini Quad High Definition Capable Single Channel Dash Camera. This is part of a review collaboration between Chuck at Panzer Platform and Robert at Drekitech. After you check out my video, make sure you check out the video description section for a link to their videos and check out their reviews as well. In this review, I'll be going through what's in the box, specifications for the dash camera, some sample footage, power consumption information, and then my list of pros and cons for the camera, and my final thoughts. So, let's get into it. This video contains several video chapters. If there's one of particular interest to you, jump to the time index listed on the screen here, or expand the video description section and click on the link down there. Hope you enjoy the video. The Viofo A119 Mini includes the following features. It has a Sony Starvis IMX335 5-megapixel image sensor, which supports quad high-definition recordings and full high-definition recording resolutions. I've listed the available video resolutions on the screen, with the default being 2560 by 1440 at 30 frames per second, but I choose the 60 frames per second version of that resolution for my own personal dash camera. This dash camera includes built-in Wi-Fi support for 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi connections. The A119 Mini includes a new 5-pin GPS logger module, which is the windshield mount and also allows you to capture the speed and GPS coordinates. The addition of the 5th pin and the connection between the GPS logger and the dash camera is beneficial when the dash camera is powering down and the hardwiring kit is powering the dash camera through the GPS logger. The dash camera can now let the GPS logger know that the dash camera is powering down, thus the GPS logger will now know to power itself off in the same situation. This is an improvement over the 4-pin version of the GPS logger, such as in the A129 Pro dash camera. The A119 Mini supports 3 different types of parking modes, but it must be powered using the optional HK4 hardwiring kit to obtain this functionality. The first one on the list is the Auto Event Detection parking mode. The camera will detect motion in the field of view, and then it will record 15 seconds before the motion was detected and 30 seconds after for a total of 45 seconds. The next parking mode available is low bitrate recording. With low bitrate recording, you get the same video resolution and frames per second as you do in normal mode, but at a much lower bitrate, which conserves on space on the microSD card, and it does include audio. This is my preferred version of parking mode on any dash camera that has it available. And then third, we have time-lapse, which is a reduced frames per second with no audio at 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 frames per second. The A119 Mini camera lens has an f-stop of 1.6 and a field of view of 140 degrees. It does have an optional CPL filter that is sold separately. The A119 Mini supports microSD cards with a capacity of up to 256 gigabytes. The microSD card is not included, so you must purchase that separately to use the dash camera. And now let's take a look at what's in the box for the Viofo A119 Mini dash camera. Removing the outer box sleeve and the top of the box, we have the dash camera itself in a protective bag, and then the foam insert around that. Next, we have the read before installation card, which cautions you to verify the camera is functional before installing it. Then below that, we have 2 electrostatic stickers, which can be used on the glass before you apply the double-sided tape, which helps you remove the camera, if necessary, just a little bit easier. I don't tend to use those, but they're available for your use. Removing that, then we have the user manual. And finally, on the bottom of the box, we have the data cable on the left. In the center, we have the longer power cable to connect the power board adapter in the lower center to the GPS logger Type-C port. And then we have the trim tool. Use that to route the cables throughout the vehicle, but be cautious about routing any cable across any airbag in your vehicle to make sure that they can deploy correctly when necessary. And finally, we have the spare adhesive pad in case you need to remove the camera, in case you need a window replaced or your windshield replaced, or you need to move the camera, you have a spare one in the box. My first daytime example is showing you how the A119 Mini picks up a lot of reflections from my front windshield, so you might want to definitely consider purchasing the CPL filter for your dash camera. Now let's take a look at footage on the left with no CPL filter and on the right with the CPL filter installed. It's the same section of road, just a few minutes apart, and you can see that the CPL filter definitely reduces the reflections from the windshield and makes the colors much better. In this section, I'm going to show you three different cameras. The upper left, we have the A119 Mini with the CPL filter. The upper right, the Viofo A229 Duo front camera with its CPL filter. In the lower center, we have a ZenFox U1, which is an ultra high definition camera, but with no CPL filter. Now I'm going to show you those same three segments in full screen mode so you can check them out in more detail. This is a low bitrate parking mode video example, and you can notice that the red Prius on the other side of the drive there is actually driving down the wrong side of the street, but it records at 2560 by 1440 in this particular configuration the way I have normal mode set up, but at 30 frames per second in parking mode, and that's true for auto event detection mode as well. I ran a parking mode impact test and I'm in low bitrate recording mode. When the impact occurred, it moved the currently active video file to the DSIM parking RO subdirectory. I'm going to start off the nighttime examples with the no CPL versus CPL example side by side, where you can see that it does darken it just a little bit, and since the CPL filter on the A119 Mini snaps on, you may consider leaving it on for nighttime footage as well. This next example is again with the no CPL on the left and the CPL on the right in a more remote section of the road where there's very little light, so you can make your assessment on how dark it makes the footage. It seems to do a reasonable job with the amount of light available even with the CPL filter installed, so again, you might want to consider leaving it on at night. Just like I showed you in the daytime section, I have the three different dash cameras with video examples here. The Viofo cameras have a CPL filter installed and the ZenFox U1 does not. And then after this section, I'll give you those full screen versions of these so you can check them out in more detail. Here are the test results for my power consumption test using the Viofo A119 Mini dash camera, which is a single channel dash camera, being powered by the Viofo HK4 hardwiring kit, which is required for parking mode. And then the latest firmware available at this point was version 1.0, build 2022-0621. To enhance my test results compared to my previous dash cam reviews, I purchased a Fluke 117 multimeter, which has the ability to track the amp draw min, max, and average. So I've added an average column to both the milliamps and watt consumption columns on this chart. The first 8 rows in this chart are for normal recording mode, with the first 4 rows for 2560 by 1440 at 30 frames per second resolution with a bit rate of high, and then the second 4 rows are 2560 by 1440 at 60 frames per second, and then the bit rate is also high. I picked those two resolutions in frames per second since those are the higher end of the functionality of this particular dash camera, and it's mainly informational since those will be powered while your vehicle is running. Then we drop into the sections for parking mode, and then the next two are for auto event detection, which is a motion-based parking mode. It will have two sections here. Basically, I'm showing the fact that when there's no motion and when there is motion, it has approximately the same value, and that's again where it has 15 seconds before the motion event and then 30 seconds after the motion event for a total of 45 seconds. But if you are at 60 frames per second in normal mode, it does drop the frames per second down to 30 frames per second in parking mode. The next row down is for the time-lapse version of parking mode, and I selected 10 frames per second and it recorded at 2560 by 1440 at 10 frames per second. The next row down is for the low bitrate version of parking mode. It went from 2560 by 1440 at 60 frames per second, where I had it for normal recording mode, and it drops it down to 30 frames per second, and then those are the power consumption values for that mode. The next three rows are also parking mode related, but it's using the parking recording duration timer, and I set it to 30 minutes for this test. I want to confirm the behavior of the A119 Mini after the parking recording duration timer expired, and as I found with the A229 Duo, it simply powers down the dash camera similar to where you had pressed the power button on the front of the camera. The last two rows in this chart are related to the amount of power the dash camera consumes after being powered off, which doesn't fully power off, and also there's a portion of that is consumed by the HK4 hardwiring kit. So on the power button line, you can see the amount of power that's consumed by the A119 Mini and the HK4. So you long press the power button, and when it fully powers down, it goes down to that level of consumption. And then if you were to use the HK4 to do a low voltage cutoff, basically it cuts off all the power to the dash camera. And in that situation, I tested it, it went down to 11.8 volts, and after a minute 28 seconds, it powered off the dash camera, and it still consumed 4 milliamps or 0.047 watts. So based on that, you can see that there's still a little bit of power draw even when you power down the dash camera, and a portion of that is from the hardwiring kit. I hope you found this power consumption information to be helpful in planning any power consumption from your vehicle's battery or a dashcam battery pack. This is the Viofo HK4 hardwiring kit. This is the recommended hardwiring kit for the T130, A229 Duo, and the A119 Mini. Viofo recommends the use of the HK4 to power the dash camera if you're going to be using the parking mode feature of this dash camera. The HK4 can be used in vehicles with 12 volt or 24 volt systems. The HK4 is a 3-wire hardwiring kit which would connect to the vehicle's fuse panel or a dashcam battery pack. The HK4 has a low voltage battery protection function which protects your vehicle's battery from being discharged. You can set it to one of the pre-selected values for a 12 volt system, for example, of 12.4, 12.2, 12.0, or 11.8. I would recommend no value lower than 12.2. The HK4 is sold separately from the dash camera, so make sure you consider the purchase of this if you're considering using the parking mode feature of this dash camera. There will be a link down in the video description section for this product. Here are my list of the pros for the Viofo A119 Mini dash camera. Let's start off with the fact that this is a quad high-definition capable dash camera, capable of recording at 2560 by 1440 at 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second, using a Sony Starvis IMX335 image sensor to get you the best day and nighttime quality video footage. And the camera has an f-stop of 1.6 with a field of view of 140 degrees, and I found that the adjustability of the up and down adjustments of this lens are quite good and better than the A229 Duo and the Viofo T130 as well. I can adjust the sky to ground ratio much better with this particular dash camera. The camera lens is also a 7 elements glass lens. Next on the list of pros for this dash camera is the fact that it supports microSD cards with a capacity of up to 256 gigabytes. Since this is a single channel dash camera, you may find that a microSD card with 128 gigabytes in capacity is more than sufficient for your needs. Next on the list of pros for the A119 Mini is it supports 3 different types of parking modes. The first one being auto event detection, which is a motion-based parking mode. It will record up to 45 seconds with 15 seconds before the event or motion that it detected and 30 seconds after. The second parking mode type supported is low bitrate recording. This is video and audio being recorded at a lower bitrate than the normal recording mode, but at the same resolution. So if you want to make sure that you capture everything that occurs in video and audio, this would be the mode for you. And the last parking mode type is time-lapse. In time-lapse recording mode, it records video at the number of frames per second that you select, but with no audio. If you want to make sure you conserve the most amount of space on your microSD card, this may be the parking mode type for you. I tend to prefer low bitrate recording, which includes audio, but depending on your space requirements, time-lapse may be the best choice for you. The next feature on the Pro list is the fact that the A119 Mini supports built-in Wi-Fi support for 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. You can utilize the 5 GHz connection to make the fastest file transfers between the dash camera and your phone device. And here's my list of things I wish would be improved with this dash camera. The dashcam buyer has to spend an additional $25 to $50 US depending on the manufacturer and capacity of the microSD card. A microSD card is essential to have the dashcam work, and there should at least be a sample microSD card to allow you to test out the camera. And if you need to buy a microSD card with a larger capacity based on how you're going to use it, that's up to you to buy the larger capacity microSD card. The next item on the list is the fact you'll need to spend some additional money to make the parking mode feature work with this dash camera. The Viofo HK4 hardwiring kit is required to make the parking mode feature work, and that's approximately $18 US at this point in time. Plus, to connect the hardwiring kit to your fuse box, you'll need to purchase at least 2 fuse taps for the constant battery power and the accessory power, so make sure you plan on another $10 or $15 depending on the type of fuse taps and where you purchase them from. So you're going to need to spend at least $30 to $35 in addition to the dash camera itself to make parking mode work. The next item on the list is not necessarily a con, it's a feature of the product, the fact that it's a single channel dash camera, but there is no way to expand this to have a second channel or a rear camera. So make sure that you're aware that it cannot be expanded and that a single front-facing camera is sufficient for your needs. The next item on the list is the screen size for the A119 Mini screen. It's a 1.5-inch screen, which is great that it has a screen, but with the installation location of this dash camera, usually that screen's at an angle, making it a little bit more challenging to view it. Plus, if you have an older set of eyes like myself, it's a little more challenging given the screen size. The next item on the cons list for the A119 Mini is the fact that it generates a lot of heat and runs very hot. The most challenging environment for any dash camera is when the vehicle is in direct sunlight, as well as the dash camera, and you're in parking mode and you're basically running the dash camera with no ventilation in the vehicle. When my vehicle is parked in direct sunlight, the interior of my vehicle does get to about 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. I started off my testing of the A119 Mini with a pre-production unit sent to me by Viofo, and that unit, when installed in my vehicle, experienced some overheating events while in parking mode. Of course, again, that's a very challenging, hot environment. I purchased a production unit that I used for this particular review video, and it's not an issue with parking mode. It actually didn't survive that long. It actually overheated in normal recording mode. On the right side of the screen is a file listing from the A119 Mini, the production one that I purchased for this review, from my trip on July 8th, 2022. And you can see there are 3 video files listed with a red ring around them. Those are from the times when the dash camera powered itself down due to an overheat event. And this is while I was driving with the air conditioning on in the vehicle. There's really no reason it should have occurred. The temperatures did not justify the shutdown of the dash camera. I had 3 other dash cameras running in the vehicle at the same time. I had a Viofo A229 Duo, a Viofo T130 3-channel, and a ZenFox U1 2-channel. And those did not overheat or shut down at these points that the A119 Mini did in normal recording mode or parking mode. One additional thing I need to point out is the production unit that I purchased does have an electrical problem of some sort with the speaker. Sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't, so that may be contributing to the particular power down event that I'm having in normal recording mode. But again, I found that the A119 Mini does generate a lot of heat and does get very hot while in direct sunlight. So keep that in mind when you're making your purchase decision for the A119 Mini. Here are my final thoughts on the Viofo A119 Mini dash camera. It captures quad high definition video at up to 60 frames per second. The video quality during daytime is very good. At nighttime, it is acceptable. I wish it was a little bit more clear, although my particular vehicle does have some pitting on the front windshield, so you will see that as potentially what looks like dirt on the windshield, but it's not. It's actually just the pitting on the windshield, and that's more noticeable at night. It's nice the Wi-Fi support in this dash camera supports 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connections to help improve that file transfer speed using the Viofo app on your phone. Please remember this is a single channel only dash camera, so if you need a front and rear dash camera, you might want to consider looking at the Viofo A229 Duo dash camera. With all the testing I've done with this dash camera, what would my recommendation to you be for whether you should purchase it? Don't buy it just yet. I'd like to see if the overheating issues are just with my particular units, the pre-production unit and then the production one that I purchased for this review, or if it's a more widespread problem than just the units that I've had in my possession to test. Please make sure you check out the video description section for additional information, and there might be affiliate links down there, and if you decide to purchase the dash camera through one of those affiliate links or any of the accessories, I will make a commission on that purchase, but at no extra cost to you. If you find this video to be informative, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit that bell notification to be notified when I upload new videos just like this. Don't forget to go check out those two other reviews of the Viofo A119 Mini dash camera from Panzer Platform and Recutech. The links to their videos are in this video's description section. And thanks for coming to the channel and checking out the video. See you in the next one.